Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It's been a while since I posted anything, but I've been busy with work as that has thankfully come back after the COVID, although not gone, subsided a little bit, I guess. That's still another issue to talk about. Also, I've been busy with a lot of other projects. One longer project you might have seen me post on my Facebook page. So I thought I'd put together a video from some older stuff. That being said, the video would be about this Traveler Space Marine that I bought when I was a kid and painted. And back then, I had painted him with Tester's paints and made him look in the style of a German paratrooper, and I thought he was great. But I never finished painting all the other minis in it. I think I spray painted them all a solid color back then. And I never painted the rocket launcher that came with it. But, and this is the last mini I have left from that set. I don't know where the other ones went. In any case, you see that I had dipped them here in thinner for quite a while, probably a week or so, trying to get that tester's paint off, and the truth is it really didn't work well at all. It made it softer on the outer surface of the paint, but the paint didn't come off. So I had to resort to using Pine Sol. And once I left them in Pine Sol for about a week or so, it actually did pull that old oil-based paint right off the Mini. Mind you, this is a metallic Mini made out of pewter, not the newer plastic Minis. I'm sorry if you hear this duck in the background. In any case, um, yeah, after I was able to use Pine Sol for about a week, he came pretty clean with a little bit of a scrubbing and washing. This is what I got, and of course here, then you see I went ahead and I placed both the rocket launcher and the Mini on the same base. I believe this is either a 35 or 40 millimeter base from Warhammer that I got somewhere. And I was able to put it here just to get an idea of what it is I wanted to do with them. There's two things going on here. One, I was trying to paint all the minis that I have in my collection from back in the day. And two, this cleans up and gets rid of some clutter from one, having too many lying around. I'll have one finished little vignette of a Space Marine firing his rocket launcher. And so, not having planned to really record any of this, I had used, you can see here, I started using some green stuff to make the base for the rocket launcher. And I've got and I'm going ahead and molding the whole base to be one large crater that my Marine and rocket launcher can sit in. Once I've got the general shape of the larger crater set, I went ahead and used the back end of my X-Acto knife and even one of my paintbrushes to make some smaller divots or craters within the larger crater that our Marine is in. And you see I'll put the Marine in and see if he fits and what that looks like. And then I'm just going to use my X-Acto knife. I'm not really a sculptor, although I do plan to mess around with that in the future, but so I don't have any of those tools, but I just have I use what I have with me, and I use the X-Acto knife to add some textures to the ridge of that crater and try and and again you see there with the brush, try and get that to get an alien looking terrain for our Marine. And so a good deal of time was spent, interestingly enough, on the base for this little vignette. Um, and as you can see, now that I've added some material, and then I take some material away with the knife and with the screwdriver, I'm just cleaning up the edges as best I can. Um, it's just a work in progress. Just add and remove until I get to a point that I like. Here you can see I had an issue where the green stuff was not sticking to the base and actually came up, so I had to figure out how to keep that down. And then I just keep fitting in the miniature to make sure that it's going to work once I get the base the way I want it to be. And again, I putz around with this for a long time. You can see here how, and then I try to clean up the edge because I originally thought I wanted to have, and I think I'm still doing that, all the edges of my bases I paint black. I think I have maybe one or two minis where I painted in another color because it just made sense for that mini. But at this point, still I was doing the same. Here it looks like I'm further along, and I've placed a box on my table. The green stuff is already dried. I'm dry fitting my miniature, and I'm looking at adding some more texture to this by using some liquid green stuff on a brush that I use as a dry brush, and just dabbing that on the base to add more texture, because ideally this is dirt, he's on space dirt. And then here you see that I've added some glue, and I've used some baking soda again to add that granular effect. So it looks like he's in some dirt, in some foreign planet or alien planet that he's in. So now while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'll take a look at our marine here and see what I'm going to do with him. I think, well, I don't think I know. I want to go with the classic look from the box that you saw earlier, which gives him an orange armor. One of the things I'm learning, I'm very bad at getting rid of mold lines. And, well, when I was a kid, I didn't even look at them. I just painted right over them. And now, as a almost 50-year-old, I barely see them until after I've primered the unit. Once I've primered it, it's when I can actually see. Also, this mini has this one finger pointing out and away from it, and it's just a miracle that after 40 years or more, that finger is still on this miniature, which is another reason why I wanted to put him on this little vignette, because the fact that he'll be protected by being on on, on a little diorama and keep him from getting any further damage from just rolling around in a drawer or a box. So I'm looking at him, and I think at this point I wanted, because he has orange power armor, I want to give him a green tint to his visor where his eyes are. This miniature is so cool. He's got a face that is sculpted inside that helmet. So if you look at that miniature at the face, you can see the ridge of the nose and the two eyes of the Marine inside that armor. And so I want to take my green craft paint, and I'm going to water that down because I don't want it to be a solid green. I want it to look like a light shining on its face. So I let the gray primer come through and just tint it with this green. And it looks like that's what I'm thinking of. I like using bottle caps to hold my, whether it's glue over there on the left or paint on the right there, and then I'm just going to go in, and since this is the deepest portion on the head, I'll go ahead and paint that visor, that part first, with my brush. and yeah, the rest is pretty straightforward. So it looks like I'm waiting for that to dry. So I take a look at my base here. I'm always moving around, got a few things going on at the same time. Sometimes you do a step in a project and you have to move to something else. And again, here it looks like I moved back to the Marine, and I'm going to go ahead and paint him the orange color to match, or to look like what's on the box that he came in. And again, this is one of my early videos, so I still and probably have that problem today where I get closer and closer off the camera. Sorry about that. But as you can see, I'm just painting over his entire body with this orange color. Right. So while I wait for that to dry, I pull out the base again. I'm probably going to file, looks like I'm filing off some of the dry material that I want. Then I go back and get some brown. And I thought to myself, in the army or in the military, you wear camouflage. Camouflage usually is a color that's going to match your surroundings. So it'd be great if these orange Marines, the reason they're orange in this particular instance is because they're on a planet that's mostly orange, or red if you want to talk about Mars. So I went ahead and get the same paint and apply that to the base. Now, one of the things I would say was a mistake on my part was I painted the rocket launcher first, then put it on this thing, then added the green stuff, and never primered the base. It's not something that I can that I can't come back from. It's just, as you can see the green stuff through the orange paint. And ideally, what I would have done is primered it as well, whether with a black primer. I might have done the whole base, attached the rocket launcher, and then primered the whole thing, and then painted the rocket launcher with the base all together. But I didn't do that. I didn't plan that far ahead. I don't recall if back then I just didn't know better or not. Obviously not. And so now while I'm waiting for that first layer of paint to dry, because I watered it down so that it just gets into all the nooks on the base, I come back and I mess around with our marine. And so I'm just going to keep working and jumping back and forth from base to marine and base to marine and keep fitting them in there and seeing how that looks. Um, Also, by this time, I already know in my head that I'm going to, once I'm done with the base, I'm going to go ahead and, look, it looks like I added a few other colors to the base. I'm going to go ahead and varnish it with a flat varnish on purpose. I want the dirt to be a flat matte color, so I want the same for the rocket launcher, because you'd think, the rocket, you don't want a shiny rocket launcher for the enemy to see in the distance. And you might say, well, Fernando, why didn't you paint the rocket launcher orange also to match its surroundings? But I think no. I think well, two reasons. One, that would mostly make for a very boring vignette, no contrast with the surroundings. And two, it's just going to be a gray equipment. I've painted all the buttons and the little screen on it, and it gives me the opportunity to dry brush some of the orange color onto the rocket launcher, as you can see I'm doing here, to make it look like it's dirty from use, And so that's what I'm doing here. You can see I got some of that gray paint, and then I'm using my soap or my brush soap and conditioner to clean it. And I'm coming back in here with some details, and there's the top of my head. Sorry about that. And so while I wait for the base to dry, I come back in again and I start adding details to my guy. And here I'm painting his rifle uh, gray as well. And I start getting into that and making sure that you can see his hand that's gripping the rifle and working out those details. So just go little by little and you start adding more and more detail as you go, and until you get to a stopping point where you think you're done or you like the mini as it is. I mean, I'm sure there's always something you find on all of my miniatures that I could do better. And at some point, it's I either stop so I can move on, or just take it as far as I can. So here I'm gonna get yellow. I bought this craft paint. I really like it. It's not as smooth as the Citadel paints, but it does the job. And I'm adding some yellow highlights to his armor, which is not on the box. The cover of the box art doesn't have yellow, if I recall. I'll have to go back and look, but it kind of breaks up this giant orange figure, or in this case, the orange figure, and gives you some more detail to look at, because these guys are tiny, and just having one big orange guy is not it's not going to cut it. It's going to make it a little more interesting to see some other colors in there. You see his green visor. You'll see the detail, the yellow pinstriping, and I believe I also took that small brush and I added some wash in some of the joints when I painted him to highlight. Yeah, that's what I'm doing here, to highlight some of the separation between metal armor plating and stuff for him. Instead of just taking a brush and dumping wash all over him, I just went in with a tiny brush and dropped it into the recesses of the miniature. Yeah, and so this took some time. He doesn't have a base, so there's not really anywhere that I can grab him from. So I'm picking him up by his rifle, which is dry at that point. And again, I creep off the visual space there, but what can I tell you? Um, yeah. So it looks like at this time, finally, I'm kind of happy with my guy. I'm gonna touch up my base, touch up my my rocket launcher, and marry the two. And this is what he looks like, my finished product. Later on I went ahead and I added some purple striations into the terrain, which I think adds a little bit of detail to it, breaks it up, it makes it look a little nicer. And I'm very happy with my Traveler Imperial Space Marine. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you get some ideas, and look forward to seeing your stuff. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.